is up out there in YouTube land? It is late, but I am finally here with my Rise of Skywalker review, discussion, yada, 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 right? I did see it opening night. Well, technically, like, the movie came out Friday. I saw it on Thursday night. And then I went back and saw it again on Friday. And so I have seen it twice. I saw it 3D the first time. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think this was one of the best 3D movies I've ever seen. And after seeing it in 2D, I think I actually preferred the 3D, which is really weird. I generally do not like 3D movies at all. I don't like, there's something with my eyes and the way that they work where for some reason things moving at the screen or at the viewer, I lose track of them, and I didn't notice that happening a lot in this movie. So I that was a really, really quick thing. If you're kind of up in the air to see it 3D, 2D, I would highly suggest 3D, man. I think they nailed it and did a really, really great job. Other than that, so we're going to start with non-spoiler stuff first, just my general impressions of it, and then we're going to get into some spoiler stuff, possibly some theories. I'm still not sure exactly how I want to cut this and another video that I'm going to do specifically about a theory that I have concerning Kylo, the end of the movie, and something that a lot of people are complaining about, but to me, yeah, man, I think it's actually kind of cool, and it could be fan theory-ish, but it definitely could be the way it happens. So I don't know, man, we'll see. But that's definitely going to be another video. I'm not sure what all I'll include in this, because I don't know if I want it to go too long, but you guys know me, I make long videos, so we will see where it goes. Overall, I like this movie a lot. You guys know me, I'm a Star Wars fan, right? I have been since pretty much birth, right? Star Wars, the first Star Wars before it was A New Hope, was the first movie-going experience I ever had in the theaters as a kid. And I really, really, really just am a massive fan of Star Wars. It has created me for the most part, right? My entire imagination, my idea of sci-fi, of good and evil, I mean, a lot of that shit is wrapped up because of Star Wars and seeing it at such a young, influential age. You know, my father taking off when I was 2 and, you know, a lot of issues with that. You know, kind of, I read into a lot of the Luke and Vader stuff when I was a kid, especially dealing with destiny and, like, am I destined to be an asshole like my father was or whatever. You know, a lot of that stuff got wrapped up into Star Wars. So Star Wars has been massively huge to me in my life. And so when we got the prequels, or not the prequels, rather, when we got this new trilogy, you know, 7 I walked in, it was okay. 8 I've gone back and forth on. Ironically enough, I think this movie makes 8 a worse movie. And overall, I think even though I really, really, really enjoyed Rise of Skywalker, I think it casts a light on a major weakness of this entire trilogy and kind of weakens the entire trilogy, even though this is by far the best movie of this new trilogy. It really does make the rest of the trilogy seem kind of weak overall. So yeah. So overall, I liked it. The pacing, I know a lot of people are complaining about the pacing, saying it was just too fast, that there was too much, that they didn't explain enough. And I will definitely say that the pacing was insanely fast. I like that. To me, it meant that, like, it felt like you get dropped in it at the beginning, and then it just feels like, to me, I just felt like I got swept up in this galaxy-spanning, massive story. And so I love that aspect of it. I love the fact that, you know, we had more locations, I think, in this Star Wars movie than we've had in any other, with the exception of maybe Rogue One. I really, really, really dug that aspect of it. It starts off in one place and then boom, you're in the next place, and then boom, like 5 minutes later, you're in another, and then in another, and then another, and it just moves quickly. One of my main kind of negatives about the movie, though, isn't so much the pacing, but is the fact that at 2 hours and 20 minutes long, this film really seems like it needs about another 20 minutes of story exposition. They left out a major explanation that they needed to hit. They really needed to. They answered a lot of questions in this movie, for sure, that were introduced in this new trilogy, but they also did not answer the one thing that they really, really needed to. And it's weird because that's also introduced in this movie. So the fact that you introduce an idea but then don't explain it is really kind of awkward to me. It did seem like a good portion of this film was spent, I don't want to say undoing episode 8, but fixing / undoing episode 8. Like, it didn't retcon anything. It didn't make anything that was said or done in episode 8 meaningless or not canon anymore, right? I've seen a lot of people complaining that things were retconned. I don't think anything in this movie was actually retconned. Or anything in this movie actually retcons anything that happens before it. But I do think that the movie spends a lot of time trying to reseed or replant and then also nurture and also grow the seeds that J.J. Abrams planted in 7 that Rian Johnson dug up and threw out. And it's kind of funny because when I talk about episode 8, or when I did talk about episode 8, there's a video, I'll link it at the end of this. Splinter Shield and I have like a 2.5 hour discussion about Star Wars. And one of the things I said about episode 8 in that was that I really, really appreciated the fact, I kind of thought it was a little bit genius, the way that Rian Johnson took everything that JJ did, kind of undid it, but then left it open for whoever was going to direct and write episode 9 to undo what he did. And at the time, I thought it was kind of genius. Seeing episode 9 now, it was a massively huge mistake. My biggest issue, like no spoilers, with this movie and what it does to the trilogy is the fact that it really sheds a light on the fact that they need somebody, Disney, Kathleen Kennedy, whoever's in control, needs somebody to create a universe much like Marvel did with Kevin Feige and the MCU. They need to do that. They need to establish that right now. They should have done it before this, but they didn't. They need to do that moving forward. Any movie that comes out from here on out really has to have a cohesive idea, an underlining or overarching. I never know how to say that. I think it's overarching, but I think it should be overarching. Anyway, an overarching story that they want to tell, whether it's a solo movie, or a new trilogy, or if they just have a general idea of what they want the next 10 years of Star Wars to be. They keep going back and forth from like wanting to make trilogies to not making trilogies to now they're saying that like the next movie is, I think, December 16th, 2022, which is 3 years from now. And they'll make that as a standalone movie. And then if the characters are well received, if the story is well received, then they'll do more. And that's how we got into this trouble with this trilogy. And part of that could be overcome by the fact that then if it's not supposed to be a trilogy, then you can just kind of tell stories and move on that way. I don't know that that's going to work so well for Star Wars. So I really think, and honestly, now that The Mandalorian is done, I think I might do a review about that also. But now that The Mandalorian is done, I really think Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau need to be brought in and be, especially Dave Filoni, because he is essentially the lore master of Star Wars at this point. He needs to be brought in and put in that Kevin Feige role. They can hire all of the writers and directors they want for any future projects, but they really, really need Dave Filoni to be involved in all of that and to be like, look, this is what we want to establish. This is our overarching story. You are free to have all of the creative expression and freedom that you want within these boundaries, within this, and then things need to be run by him. I think that was supposed to be Kathleen Kennedy's job, and honestly, I think she kind of failed at that pretty miserably. But yeah, other than like the pacing and stuff like that, I didn't have a whole lot of issues with this movie at all. I think a lot of the problems that people are saying about this movie, honestly, to me, are just, I don't know. It's like a product of our time, right? Like, I honestly truly believe that if Return of the Jedi came out this year instead of this movie, and the original trilogy is all new, and Return of the Jedi came out, I think we would have people bitching about the fact that it was unimaginative, that there's just a second Death Star, that Palpatine shot lightning from his fingers, that's not a force power, like, that's not established. They'd be complaining about the fact that we have no, history, no idea of who Han Solo is, because you really didn't at that time, other than like Splinter of a Mind's Eye and a couple of other novels that weren't really canon, and that weren't really read all that much at that time. You had the 3 movies, and in those 3 movies, Han Solo's character isn't explored hardly at all. None of these characters are. At that time that Return of the Jedi came out, I remember I lived it. Boba Fett was loved by fans. Like, there was all of these cool theories and ideas and everything else, but there was no lore about him. He was like one of the most beloved characters of the original trilogy, and there was no canon for him. All of that came later. And so the people that are complaining about the movies not exploring some of these characters, I don't think understand just how much these characters have been explored more than they were in the original trilogy. When you're telling these massive, huge, galaxy-spanning stories, it is difficult. I can only imagine it is an unfathomable task to then also get a ton of story and history in on all of these characters. So I think they did in a relatively good job. I think my biggest enjoyment factor of this movie, the thing I liked about it the most, is that they did, for the most part, for the majority of this film, all of your stars are together, right? You got Poe, you got Finn, you got Rey with the droids are together for the majority of the movie. Now, obviously, they have their own stories, so they kind of have to go off at some point, but it's not like 8 where they were just, everybody was separate, right? And even 7, right? We've got Rey and Finn together for a bit, and then they kind of get separated, and then they come back together at the end. You didn't have any of this. So I think this movie is by far the best in this trilogy. I really, really enjoyed it. It's probably, if I was going to rank my Star Wars movies, it's definitely top 4, probably, right? Return of the Jedi will probably always be my favorite because of the meaning it had to me as a kid. Empire Strikes Back will probably always be the best Star Wars movie, so those are always 1, 2 for me. Return of the Jedi, my favorite. Empire Strikes Back, the second. Rogue One, in my opinion, was just flippin' beautiful and perfect, and it was an amazing story, and they did a great job writing it backwards, basically, and really tying it into the original trilogy. And I think this and Attack of the Clones really comes in next for me, and then the rest of them after that are just kind of meh, whatever. So yeah, so that's basically non-spoilers. So we're gonna take a break. We'll be right back with some spoilery stuff. And some theories. I'm trying to not make this go too long, but I just went on for 13 minutes with no spoilers, so this will probably be another 10 or 15 minutes of super spoiler shit. So, buckle in, grab a snack. If you haven't seen Rise of Skywalker yet, this is your chance. Stop this now, add it to watch later, watch it after you see the movie, come on back and listen. So...
This is the last warning.
Alrighty, and we're back. So look at that. We got the spoiler warning out of the way. Spoilers. One of the biggest things that people kind of are complaining about in this movie is that Rey is still this Mary Sue character, right? A Mary Sue character, somebody that's good at everything and doesn't have any weaknesses. And in 7, that's definitely... I don't know. In watching it again, she's definitely, powerful. We know that she's definitely powerful, possibly too powerful, because she faces off against Kylo, blah blah blah. Whereas like Luke in episode 4 doesn't face off with Vader himself ever, right? He never comes face to face with Vader until Empire. They see Vader across the docking bay on the Death Star, but they don't actually come face to face with Vader. And so I kind of get where people are coming at with Rey, but in this movie, and again, spoilers, last chance, get the fuck out if you haven't seen it. In this movie, it is told that Palpatine, or that the Rey is a Palpatine, right? That she is Palpatine's granddaughter. And the way that they do it, I think, was perfect. I had said after episode 8 that it could always come out that Kylo Ren was lying to her. And while it's established in this movie that he's not lying to her per se, it was established that, like, her parents being nothing, Kylo finds out in this that, her parents were, her dad was Palpatine's son. And while we don't know how that happened, we know how it happened, right? We know how babies are born generally in Star Wars, other than Anakin. So I'm assuming that was the same thing. But here's where we get into a little bit of fan theoriness, I don't know, whatever. A little bit of fan theory, a little bit of nerd geekdom, whatever. And there's nothing really in the movie to support this, but we do know that Palpatine created Anakin, right? He manipulated the midichlorians to create life, and he did that with Anakin. My theory is, what if he did the same thing with his own son's pregnant wife with Rey? What if while she was pregnant, he manipulated midichlorians within the fetus, within her, whatever, to essentially make her more powerful? That would explain a lot, right? It would explain why she's so damn powerful. It would explain why the Force is calling to her in the beginning. And I have no idea, again, if this is actually the case or not, because there was no story whatsoever told about her parents other than they were just trying to keep her away from Palpatine. And that's one of the things that I have to say about this movie that I really think that, where I said in my non-spoiler that they needed to add about another 20 minutes, they needed to explain how Palpatine is in this friggin' movie, because they never do. They don't tell you whether he was cloned, whether he survived. Scars on his body and stuff make it look like maybe he survived, but there is no way that that's possible. So I think he was cloned. I think they kind of stole some of the Dark Empire comic book series stuff, and that this was, that was just the plan, right? If he died, was to be able to bring him back this way. They don't get into it. They need to. I'm hoping that there's going to be a book or something that comes out after that. But like that, they really needed to explain who the hell his son is, when he had a son, at what point, if he knew that Rey was born, or not. Like, did he just have an illegitimate son who he didn't know about and he didn't find out about till maybe after he died or whatever? Like, he saw it through the Force, whatever. I don't know. They need to explain this a lot more. And I'm hoping that we will get a book, a comic book series, something doing exactly that. But I do think that it's possible that he manipulated the Force, right? Or the midichlorians, rather, to create Rey and to make her so strong and so powerful. And also on that note, she isn't all that powerful in 7. She is, right? The Force is calling to her. She goes toe to toe with Kylo and actually beats him. But if we remember, right, he had just killed his father. Snoke establishes in 8 that he was fractured mentally, right? So his connection to the Force, his ability to concentrate, his ability to draw on the hatred was compromised, right? He's feeling the call to the light from his father, I'm sure. And it's like this huge emotional time. And he took a direct hit from Chewie's bowcaster. So, like, this is a dude that it was not at his top game. And if you watch when Rey first encounters him, she just gets absolutely pwned by him. And then the majority of that fight at the end on Starkiller Base, she's running from him. She's just running. She's tiring him out even more. And it's not until he has her cornered that all of a sudden she kind of has this ability to like feel the force, right? And like she can feel it swelling within her, and then that's when she's able to turn the tide. So I don't think she's as powerful as people are really going on about in 7, because I think there's definitely reasons to explain why she was able to best Kylo. So yeah, that's one thing. I was gonna put that in a fan theory video, but fuck it, we're talking about spoilers, so here we go. This is gonna go on for even longer now because I have one other major issue that people have with this movie that I don't have, and yet I also have kind of an explanation for it. Again, there's no evidence in the movie to back, well, I shouldn't say there's no evidence. There's nothing explicitly stated to back up this theory or this idea of mine, but I do believe that there's enough evidence in the movie to support this theory. And that's Palpatine's insane ability to be able to use Force lightning to basically cripple a fleet. People are going off about this. I remember I got into a Twitter argument beef about it with somebody, which was ironic because when I did present some points, of course they don't come back. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to think about any of this stuff. So leave those down below. But anyway, so we're in Star Wars. We've been conditioned to know that the longer something goes, the bigger it gets, right? We had A New Hope. We see the Death Star. This thing can destroy planets, and then but throughout that, we really only see a few TIE fighters, right? A few Star Destroyers here and there. Empire Strikes Back, we see a fleet, we see an even bigger Star Destroyer right before Hoth, which we didn't see in episode 4 at all. We see what these ships can do. We see an expansion of Force abilities and Force powers from Vader, and Vader seems more powerful in 4. He's, super slow and two-handed wielding his lightsaber, and Empire, he's, one handle, one fisting it, swashbuckling against Luke. So things get bigger. And then in Jedi, they just get even bigger. We've got another Death Star that can be reloaded faster. Anybody that doesn't know that lore or whatever, that's why the second Death Star was actually much more powerful than the first, was it could actually be recharged and used again quicker than the first one. The first one took an insanely long time to charge up, and I think the first one took an insanely long time to charge up, and I think the second one, that recharge time was like 10 times faster or something. So we've got that. So we've established that. And then even if you take in the old expanded universe, right, we had the Death Star, right, blows up a planet. We had Death Star 2, blows up planets, recharges way faster. If you go into the expanded universe, they had the Sun Crusher, that was a ship, essentially, that could destroy a sun and force it to go supernova, which then wipes out entire friggin' solar systems. And then we get Starkiller Base, which is essentially the Sun Crusher on crack, because if you think about it, the Sun Crusher could actually destroy 2 solar systems at once, right? Because it can suck up a sun, which then would destroy the system that star is in, and then it can then launch these projectiles through hyperspace, I'm guessing, star systems away, and destroy an entire system of planets in one shot. So 2 star systems. So things get bigger and bigger. So when I first saw the Force ability, the Force lightning that Palpatine wields in this movie, I had no issue with it whatsoever. I was just like, whoa, dude, that's fucking badass, right? He's here. He got even more badass. And this is also after absorbing energy and life force from both Rey and Kylo and their Force diode thing that they had tried to explain. Another thing they needed more time to explain. But anyway, so he's super powerful, he's supercharged, and he goes fucking, just goes full on, you can, he just goes full blown and goes crazy. And when I saw people having an issue with this, I saw the movie again, and it kind of hit me that they are on the Sith homeworld, or at least the Sith base world as we know it in this. I don't know if this is taking Korriban completely out of it, or if this is just another Sith homeworld that's like seems to be rife in the dark side. You've got, from the moment they introduce this planet, there's just lightning strikes everywhere, right? It's just a violent planet. And if you notice, after Palpatine dies, which essentially destroys the Sith. As far as we know, the planet's peaceful, right? All of that lightning is gone. All of that kind of negative energy, that dark side energy, is gone from the planet. Also, that entire army of cloaked figures, whatever the hell those are. Again, we need more story. I would like to know if those are Force spirits, like dark side spirits, Sith spirits, that have kind of manifested themselves, or if it's just like an army of cultists, like Sith cultists, or if it's the original Massasai. That's probably too many A's and S's in that, but the Massasai, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. I can't remember. It's been a while since I read a book that had them, but anyway, they were the original Sith race. And so I don't know what any of those are, but we are told this is the Sith homeworld. This is obviously where Palpatine has had a base, a stronghold, whatever, from the beginning, right? Because these Star Destroyers that he has are original design Star Destroyers from the original trilogy. They've just got the cooler, more miniaturized Death Star tech on them that have been developed after the original trilogy, obviously. But the fleet itself is definitely original trilogy fleet. So it's established this planet is powerful. And so I am assuming, and with evidence, I'm making the claim that he is empowered. His abilities are amplified, not only by all of these Force Sith spirits, dark side spirits, cult worshippers, whatever they are, but also by the planet itself. If you notice, when he launches his lightning up, he looks up and he's like, "Ah!" When he does that, it goes up, hits the atmosphere of the planet, and then spreads out. So it's also possible that there's just some kind of hyper conductivity in the atmosphere that then amplifies lightning in particular, right? Because those lightning strikes are pretty powerful. It's possible that that's it. So people that are really going crazy about this, in my opinion, I think are just blowing it out of proportion and hating to hate. And I don't really understand that at all, because there are ways to explain this within Star Wars canon, within Star Wars lore, or even if you expand Star Wars canon and lore, why can't this be a thing, right? It's just like force healing, right? We never really see it. It's kind of hinted at when Obi-Wan touches Luke that he does it. But in the movies, we never really see that. As force healing, it's never really explained, but then we've seen it now in The Mandalorian, we see it in this movie, and so why not? Like, why are some things acceptable to people, but other things not when it comes to the expanding of force powers, especially when it's entirely possible that this was boosted or enhanced or amplified by the planet itself. And if we go into it a little bit deeper, and if we do make the assumption that these are either dark side cultists or something like that, I think that it's possible that he was being amplified by them. In Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire series, it's established that like the Empire fell in Return of the Jedi because when Palpatine died, he was actually coordinating everybody, right? He was giving a force ability, or he was reaching out through the force and enhancing the entire Empire's abilities, right? And that's one of the reasons, one of the explanations given as to why he was kind of distracted and didn't notice the feelings of Vader and doing that. So if that's possible, by him then draining Kylo and Rey's force essence, essentially, it's easily possible that he basically overcharged himself. And then when you add in the planet and all these other followers, like all of this other stuff, it's totally makes sense to me. And then when you also take into consideration that then after he dies and you see this come down and it wipes out all of the other force spirits, the planet itself is not as volatile. This also goes into another theory of mine that this is why we didn't see, because I do believe personally that those are all Sith spirits or dark side spirits that are all gathered and amplifying Palpatine. And that to me is also why he's so insanely powerful. And then when Rey can finally tap into and summon all of the Jedi spirits to help her, they kind of, I think, cancel out his ability to supercharge himself through all of these other Force spirits or dark side spirits. I honestly think that the Jedi spirits countered the dark side Sith spirits, and then that's when Palp loses his ability to channel the Force, because like, he says he is all the Sith, but I don't think that they are a bunch of Highlanders, right? I don't think that every time Sith kills his master that he actually like gets his strength. I don't think that's the way it works. I think he was speaking metaphorically in the same way that Rey was saying, you know, and even Luke says that, you know, the generations of Jedi live within you now. It's all about the knowledge and being able to tap into, you know, the Force in that way. And so if you watch it and you see that moment that she taps into all of the other Jedi and she comes back, he looks shocked when his lightning stops. He does. He's like, no, wait, what? There's a brief moment where he doesn't understand why he can't do that anymore. And I honestly think it's those Jedi spirits coming back and essentially cutting off or negating the additional boost that all of those other Sith spirits, dark side spirits, whatever they were doing to enhance Palpatine. So, I don't know. Those are two of my theories. I have another theory, but this video has already gone on for a half hour. It's already way too damn long. So that'll come in another video. But that's a good one. It's about Kylo Ren. And I am actually asking the question in that video, and I'm going to answer it, whether or not he actually finishes what Vader began. Right? Because that's a big thing that he touches on all the time. So what is it exactly that Vader began, and did he or did he not finish it? I have my thoughts. That's going to be the next video. It should come out the same time as this one, so it should be up now. If not now, then very, very soon. I'm kind of scheduling these to all go live within about an hour of each other or so. So if that one's not live when you watch this, it should be in about an hour if you watch this when it first comes out, premieres. Also, now that this one's running for 30 minutes, you only have a half an hour to wait. So go watch one of my other videos, watch some hockey, something like that. Watch my latest Division 2 video, whatever. You can watch anything you want, and then come back and let's talk about Kylo and Vader and what exactly Kylo was talking about and whether or not he actually does it. I think he did. But anyway, we'll get into that next video. Thank you guys very much for watching this. If you liked it, please hit the little thumbs up button, because it helps me out, and it's also just super kind of cool to do that. Also, if you like this and you think I raised up any interesting points, please share it, because I would love to get this conversation really going, especially with fan theories. It's one thing that we tend to miss nowadays. Like, there's always fan theories, but I always seem to miss where these things happen. So let's have the discussion here. What are your fan theories after seeing Rise of Skywalker? What do you hope is the future for Star Wars? Do you hope they go Old Republic? Do you hope they continue with Rey or on this timeline? Do you hope they go even farther, the way that they did in the Legacy comics, and bring in Cade Skywalker and some other, you know, people, you know, 60 years in the future? You want to go way in the future? I personally think that Disney needs to get as far away from the original trilogy as possible to give themselves the most freedom to create new ideas, new stories, new characters, new lore, and separate themselves from the original trilogy so we can get out of these ridiculously stupid comparisons that people are making, and get away from these petty little bullshit bitches that people have about these movies. I'm not saying all of the complaints about these movies are stupid and petty. I definitely see a lot of them, and I understand a lot of them. Ultimately, it's new Star Wars. I'm always down for new Star Wars. So even if it sucks, it's better than not having any Star Wars at all to me. So let me know what you think down below. And I'll see you next time I make a video, which would be in like 30 minutes. You should see that one. So thank you very much. I love you guys. You guys rock. Until I see you next time, keep on living the dream.